Hey, my name is Jeffrey Lawson. I'm 33 years old, living alone in a tiny apartment in Boise, Idaho, working as a freelance voice actor. Sounds kinda cool, right? I get paid to bring characters to life, animated shows, commercials, even documentaries about wild animals. People all over the country hear my voice through headphones, car speakers, TVs. Yet in my own family, nobody ever really listened to me. I grew up in Twin Falls, a few hours away, where the sky is this perfect deep blue and the fields stretch forever. But at home, there was no peace. Just noise, yelling, criticism, and constant judgment. My dad, Robert Lawson, ran a popular auto repair shop. Big, tall guy, voice like a roaring engine, personality like steel. He had to control everything. My grades, my choices, even my thoughts. A B+ on my report card. Enough to make him frown and ask, "Is that all you've got, Jeffrey?" Mom, Cynthia, was different but just as harsh. Always polished in public, always perfect. Behind closed doors, critic after critic. "Sit up straight, Jeffrey. Stop slouching like a failure." And she'd snap during dinner, even when I was just quietly eating. Then there's my older sister, Vanessa, 2 years ahead of me. Smart, practical, and always pleasing our parents. She's married now with a child, living just outside Twin Falls in a perfect little house. And my younger brother, Dylan, 4 years younger than me, was the golden child. Carefree, reckless, never responsible for a single thing, and our parents shielded him no matter what he did. And me, the middle child, the invisible one. Birthdays forgotten or marked with a last-minute cake and a half-hearted wish. My high school graduation. Not a single family member showed. Dad was busy at the garage. Mom was at the spa. Even now, years later, it's like nothing has changed. Phone calls go unanswered. Messages ignored. And every time I visit for holidays, I feel like an outsider. Like I'm standing behind a glass wall, watching everyone else live. The only person who ever made me feel seen, even a little, was my grandma. Mabel, sweet, soft-spoken, and stubbornly loving. She was the one who baked cookies for me when I felt invisible. The one who believed in my dreams, no matter how silly my parents thought they were. But then came the lottery. And suddenly everything I thought I knew about family, loyalty, and trust was about to be tested. I remember the day clearly, sitting at my tiny kitchen table, a scratch-off ticket in my hand, thinking, well, it's worth a shot. I didn't even have high hopes. Lotteries were always a joke to me. But when the numbers lined up and I realized I had just won $92 million, my mind went blank. Pure disbelief. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I laughed, then cried, then laughed again. I wanted to shout, to tell someone, anyone, but the thought of my family's reaction made me hesitate. Because my parents, they would never just celebrate with me. They'd expect something in return, demand control, or worse, jealousy and resentment. Vanessa? She'd probably try to manipulate me, pretending to care while scheming to get her share. Dylan? He'd throw a tantrum or make a mess, expecting me to fix it. And me? I didn't want any of that. I wanted peace, safety, and freedom. That's when the plan began. I had to keep this a secret. I had to hide it from everyone. But at the same time, I had to survive day-to-day life without raising suspicion. And for that, I knew I couldn't do it alone. Only one person could help me navigate this, Grandma Mabel. The first step? I faked being sick. Nothing too extreme, just enough to stay home, avoid family contact, and start thinking about what to do with my sudden, unimaginable fortune. Grandma caught on immediately, not to my surprise. She always did. She didn't ask questions, didn't judge. She just helped, made soup, brought me old photo albums, and reminded me quietly that I didn't owe anyone my happiness. It felt liberating. For the first time, I realized I could have something completely my own, something I didn't have to share or justify. The lottery ticket was my ticket to freedom. But little did I know. The real challenge wasn't winning the money, it was keeping it. Keeping my secret, and surviving the inevitable chaos that comes when family discovers you're suddenly untouchable. After Grandma Mabel helped me settle in and reminded me I didn't owe anyone my happiness, I knew I had to be extremely careful. The lottery had changed my life overnight, but no one could know, especially not my family. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about freedom, control, and survival. I couldn't risk letting the wrong people see me differently. Because in my family, everything was about power, jealousy, and expectation. The first thing I did was perfect my sick routine. I quickly realized that if I could convincingly act ill, I could stay home, keep my secret, and start thinking about my next moves. At first it was simple, groaning in bed, A slightly hoarse voice when answering calls, exaggerated yawns. But I had to make it flawless. One slip, one overly energetic gesture, and my parents, or worse Vanessa, might notice. Grandma Mabel was my anchor. She never questioned me, never doubted me, never made me feel guilty for taking the time I needed. Every morning she would bring me tea, sometimes with honey and lemon, sometimes just plain. Sometimes she would sit across from me at the tiny kitchen table and hum quietly while I stared blankly at my laptop, pretending to work. She would check my temperature with an old mercury thermometer she kept tucked in her dresser. "You're burning up just a little," she'd say, nodding solemnly, as if this minor sickness were the most serious thing in the world. While Grandma was there, I could breathe. I could plan, and plan I did. I spent hours researching ways to safely manage a fortune like 92 million without anyone tracing it back to me. Offshore accounts, anonymous trusts, low-profile investments, tax shelters. Every option I could find became a puzzle I obsessed over. I made lists, spreadsheets, charts and notes, filling notebooks with tiny scribbles and calculations. I knew if I messed up even slightly, the secret would be over and my freedom would vanish. But hiding wasn't just about numbers. Hiding meant pretending nothing had changed. Friends started calling, asking to hang out, to go on weekend trips, to borrow small amounts of money. I had to come up with excuses. "Still sick," I said. "I've got a big recording project." Sometimes I muttered vague, half-hearted apologies about feeling drained. Each call became a test of my acting skills, and each success brought a quiet surge of pride. And then came the hardest part, my family. Oh, my family. They had a way of sniffing out change, even when you tried your best to hide it. My parents called asking when I would visit. Vanessa invited me over for dinner, claiming it had been too long since we all spent time together. Dylan, ever clueless but persistent, asked if I could lend him money for his latest impulsive venture. Normally I might have considered these things, but now everything was different. I lied, I dodged, I invented excuses with surgical precision. I kept my voice soft, my tone apologetic, and my expressions carefully controlled. I even started keeping a sick journal, noting down exactly what I'd said and done each day so I wouldn't slip up. The invisible middle child had suddenly become a master of deception, and it was exhausting. Meanwhile, Grandma and I began making careful plans for the money. Not extravagant, not flashy, but safe, secure, and strategic. She suggested we start small, invest quietly, purchase a property far from prying eyes, and keep every detail tightly controlled. Every night we'd sit with cups of tea and quietly discuss numbers, strategies, and ideas. It felt liberating. For the first time, I wasn't living someone else's expectations. I was designing my life, my own rules. But freedom, I quickly realized, came with tension. Every knock at the door, every unexpected phone call, every text message made my chest tighten. I started checking the peephole obsessively before opening doors. I kept my blinds drawn during the day. Even my neighbors' casual greetings felt like potential threats. What if someone saw me shopping for groceries in cash? What if someone noticed unusual bank activity? The paranoia crept in quietly, a shadow I couldn't shake. Days turned into weeks. I became meticulous. I timed my sick days to coincide with weekends or important family events. I faked headaches and stomach aches, coughing lightly to avoid leaving the apartment. I even started wearing oversized sweaters and scarves indoors so that if anyone did see me briefly, it would look like I was bundled up from illness. Grandma helped me rehearse lines for phone calls with friends or family, practicing the exact tone, volume, and phrasing I would need to stay convincing. But the tension wasn't just external. It started to gnaw at me internally. I felt trapped in a strange dual life, the same invisible Jeffrey at home and in front of family, but secretly a millionaire with possibilities I had only dreamed of. Sometimes I would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the ways my life could change and all the ways it could explode. Because secrets this big have a way of unraveling unexpectedly. One evening, after another long day of hiding and planning, Grandma placed a steaming cup of tea on my nightstand. "Jeffrey," she whispered, her voice calm but firm, "remember this, some secrets aren't just about money. They're about protecting yourself, about keeping control over your life. Don't let anyone take that from you, no matter what. Not your parents, not your sister, not even Dylan." Her words settled over me like a protective blanket. I sipped the tea, feeling a mix of warmth, determination, and fear, because she was right. Hiding 92 million wasn't just about lying, it was about survival. And I knew deep down that the real test was just around the corner. The knock on my door came late that night. I froze, heart pounding. Not a usual neighbor, not Grandma. Whoever it was, they weren't supposed to be there. And I knew in that instant that the first real challenge of keeping my secret had arrived. The knock on my door that night rattled me more than I expected. I froze, holding my breath, listening. It wasn't Grandma. She had already gone to bed hours ago. My heart pounded in a way that made my chest ache. Slowly, carefully, I tiptoed to the door, peering through the peephole. And there he was, Dylan, my younger brother, standing there in the dim hallway, a backpack slung over one shoulder, looking completely casual, completely unaware that I was living a lie. But something in the way he tilted his head made me suspicious. Dylan never knocked at odd hours without a reason. I opened the door just a crack. "Hey, Dylan, what are you doing here?" I asked, forcing my voice to sound weak, sickly, just as I had rehearsed 1,000 times in front of Grandma. "Hey, Jeff. I wanted to check on you. You've been missing a lot of family events. Thought you might need, company," he said, stepping closer. Too close. His tone sounded casual, but I could see the curiosity in his eyes. The sort of curiosity that could smell a secret. I clenched my jaw. "I'm still not feeling well." "Maybe another time," I mumbled, keeping my gaze low, trying to make my slump look natural. Dylan hesitated, and then he smiled. One of those irritating, infuriating smiles that made you feel like you were about to be trapped in a trap you didn't see coming. "You know, Jeff, you've been acting weird lately. I mean, really weird. Are you hiding something?" My stomach dropped. Every instinct screamed at me to shut the door and run. But I kept calm. I don't know what you mean. "Just sick, Dylan, that's all," I said, my voice trembling slightly, hoping it sounded convincing. Dylan laughed, but it wasn't a warm laugh. It was the kind that tests boundaries. Sure. Just sick," he said, patting my shoulder. "Well, don't forget, I'm your brother. I can tell when you're lying." He laughed, but the shadow of doubt lingered. My heart wouldn't stop racing. How much did he suspect? Had he noticed anything unusual about me lately? The way I avoided spending time with the family? The little luxuries I allowed myself secretly? That night I told Grandma everything. I didn't leave out a single detail. The knock, the questions, the way Dylan looked at me. She listened quietly, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes steady and knowing. "Jeffrey," she said finally. "He's curious, yes, but curiosity isn't the same as greed, yet. It's only a matter of time before someone notices. You need a plan for that moment. If he ever finds out, it could change everything." Her words hit me like a warning bell. I realized that hiding the money was one thing, but hiding it from Dylan, Vanessa, my parents, or anyone who could sniff out a change in my lifestyle, that was going to be the real battle. The next few days became a careful balancing act. I spent mornings pretending to be sick, afternoons researching investments, and evenings checking every possible digital footprint I could leave behind. Every transaction, every call, every email had to be analyzed for potential risk. I even started using cash exclusively for small purchases, groceries, coffee, anything minor, just to avoid any trace. But tension crept in everywhere. Friends called, texted, and sometimes showed up unexpectedly. I had to smile through weak coughs, shuffle papers, and pretend my body was fragile while my mind raced faster than ever. I couldn't trust anyone, not even friends. Every casual question, every curiosity about my life felt like a potential threat. And then Vanessa called. She invited me to dinner at her place. I paused, my chest tightening. "I'm not feeling well," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "Maybe next week." She laughed lightly. "Jeffrey, you've been avoiding the family for weeks. What's going on? You never cancel. Are you hiding something?" The way she said it, half teasing, half accusing, made my blood run cold. Vanessa always had a way of prying, of detecting things beneath the surface. I realized then that the most dangerous part of hiding this secret wasn't Dylan's curiosity. It was Vanessa. She was sharp, observant, and more ambitious than anyone in the family. Grandma sensed my worry before I even said a word. "You need to be ready," she whispered. "Not just for Dylan, not just for Vanessa, but for everyone. Secrets like this don't stay hidden for long, and once they're out, there's no going back." That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the possibilities. Could I continue pretending to be sick indefinitely? Could I manage this fortune without anyone noticing? And what if one day someone saw a glimpse, just a tiny hint of what I had? Sleep didn't come. I kept imagining scenarios. Dylan barging in, asking for money, Vanessa cornering me at dinner, my parents pressuring me to share. Every worst-case scenario played out in vivid detail in my mind. And then, just as I was drifting off, I heard it, a soft creak from the living room. Someone was moving around, quietly, purposefully. Not Dylan, not Grandma. Someone else. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. Whoever it was. They weren't supposed to be here. And I knew in that instant that the next few hours could determine everything, because the first real threat to my secret had finally arrived. The creak in the living room that night haunted me long after it happened. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst through my chest. I lay in bed under the thin blanket, frozen, listening. Every fiber of my body screamed that this wasn't just some ordinary noise. It wasn't Grandma stirring in her sleep. It wasn't Dylan sneaking in. And it wasn't Vanessa, who lived miles away. No, this was something different, something deliberate. I held my breath and waited, staring into the shadows. The faint glow of the streetlight filtered through my blinds, casting long, stretching shapes across the walls. Every shadow looked like a person. Every creak sounded like an intruder. My brain raced, calculating what to do. Should I call the police? Hide? Confront? Panic? But instinct told me, don't make a sound. Move carefully. Think. Slowly, silently, I slid out of bed, wrapping the blanket tightly around my shoulders. Every step felt like walking on glass. I reached the living room doorway and peered around the corner. My father, Robert Lawson, stood there. I froze. He wasn't supposed to know where I lived. He had never visited Boise before. How did he even get in? Did he have a key? Had he followed me? Questions raced through my mind so fast I couldn't keep up with them. He was moving deliberately, scanning the room, opening cabinets, glancing under tables. His heavy steps echoed like drum beats in the otherwise silent apartment. I realized with a sickening chill that he wasn't just looking for me. He was looking for something. Something he thought I had. I backed toward the kitchen, my heart hammering. I couldn't confront him. I couldn't scream. I couldn't alert Grandma. And calling the police? Out of the question. Not if he was dangerous, and my gut screamed he might be. Minutes felt like hours. I clutched my phone, thinking about texting Grandma. But a single notification sound could give me away. I had to be invisible. Then he muttered something under his breath. Jeffrey, you've been hiding something. I can feel it. My blood ran cold. I forced my body to slump, pretending to be weak, sick, fragile. I can't sleep, I whispered, voice trembling just enough to be convincing. He turned, narrowed his eyes, but apparently believed me. For now. I spent the rest of the night tiptoeing through a maze of shadows, listening to every sound, the creak of the floorboards, the hum of the fridge, even the faint whistle of the wind outside. I couldn't close my eyes. Every second felt like a potential trap. The next morning, Grandma noticed my pallor. She didn't ask questions, just made me tea, hummed softly, and quietly handed me a warm toast. Everything all right? She asked, her eyes calm but sharp. I nodded, trying to appear convincing, but I could feel her sensing the tension. I think someone might have come into the apartment last night, I admitted quietly. Her expression hardened. Jeffrey, listen carefully. This isn't just about hiding money anymore. You need a plan for every possible situation. Your family. Anyone could stumble onto this fortune if they try hard enough. You've got to think 10 steps ahead always. And she was right. I had thought I was prepared. I had rehearsed excuses, perfected my sick routine, even studied investment plans for hours every day. But I realized now that preparation wasn't enough. My family was unpredictable. They were cunning in ways I hadn't considered. Over the next few days, I became hyper-vigilant. Every phone call, every message, every small interaction required careful thought. I kept journals documenting every lie I told, every excuse, every possible slip. I rehearsed answers to questions Vanessa or Dylan might ask. I checked and rechecked locks, windows, and even my internet privacy settings. I became obsessed with hiding every trace of wealth, every purchase, every bank transfer, every new object in my apartment. Then came Vanessa's call. She sounded casual, but her tone had an edge I couldn't ignore. Jeffrey, you've been acting strange lately. Canceling plans, avoiding the family. Is there something you're not telling us? My heart skipped. Vanessa was dangerous. Not like Dylan, whose curiosity was impulsive and reckless. Vanessa was methodical, observant, and smart. If she suspected something, she could figure it out in minutes. I'm still sick, I said, my voice shaky but rehearsed. Maybe next week. She didn't press, but I could feel her suspicion lingering through the phone. The longer I stayed silent, the more my anxiety grew. Grandma and I began strategizing on an entirely new level. Not just hiding money, but creating decoys, distractions, and layers of protection. We talked about safety, escape routes, and even how to answer any probing questions without giving the slightest clue. My life had become a constant balancing act. Days became weeks. I perfected the art of appearing, weak and fragile while moving like a ghost. Behind the scenes, I timed grocery runs, errands, and daily tasks to avoid anyone noticing changes. I used cash for everything, hid receipts, even avoided online transactions whenever possible. But paranoia seeped in, unrelenting. Every unexpected noise became a threat. Every visitor could be a spy. Every shadow a potential intruder. I became hyper-aware of the world around me, seeing potential threats in places I had never considered before. Neighbors, delivery people, even my mailman. One night, exhausted from days of tension, I finally started to relax in bed. Grandma had gone to her room hours earlier. I was about to drift into sleep when I heard it. A soft, deliberate knock at my front door. My stomach dropped. It wasn't Dylan, not Vanessa, not Grandma. Whoever it was, they weren't supposed to be there. I froze, straining to listen. The door handle moved slowly, deliberately, almost testing me. Whoever it was had patience, knowledge, and intent. My blood ran cold. I realized in that moment, my secret wasn't just at risk anymore. It was about to face its most dangerous, unpredictable test yet. And this time, there was no room for error. The knock at my door wasn't just a sound, it was a storm crashing into my life. I froze, blanket clutched to my chest, heart pounding so violently it felt like it could shake the walls. Whoever was on the other side wasn't supposed to be here. Not Dylan, not Vanessa, not Grandma. My mind raced, imagining every possibility. A burglar? Someone from work? Or had someone discovered the lottery? I inched toward the door, slow, deliberate, each step calculated. My breathing was shallow, every sound amplified in the quiet apartment. My phone was in hand, ready to call Grandma if needed. But even a single notification could betray me. I had to be invisible. Through the peephole, I saw a figure, a silhouette. Tall and imposing, almost impossibly calm. My heart sank. It was my father. Robert Lawson. How had he found me? He didn't know where I lived. Had he followed me? Did he have a key? The questions were endless, and the answer was terrifying. I stepped back, trying to remain calm. I couldn't panic, not now. One wrong move, one flinch, and he would know. One wrong word, one misstep, and everything would collapse. I forced myself to speak, voice weak and trembling. The exact tone I'd rehearsed countless times with Grandma. Dad, I couldn't sleep. His eyes narrowed. Jeffrey, you've been hiding something from us. Something big. I can feel it. Every muscle in my body froze. My secret, my 92 million secret, was under immediate threat. I had to think fast. I needed a distraction, a plan, and more than that, I needed to stay alive in this mental battle. I remembered Grandma's advice. Always think 10 steps ahead. Protect yourself first. Slowly I backed toward the kitchen, keeping my body slumped, weak, sickly. I'm really not feeling well, I said, voice cracking convincingly. Maybe just let me rest. My father didn't leave. He moved closer, scanning the apartment like a predator. His eyes flicked to the cupboards, to the couch, to my carefully hidden notes and documents. Panic surged in me, but I forced calm, forcing myself to focus on what I could control. I grabbed the blanket from the couch and slowly wrapped it around me, drooping over my shoulders as if my body had given out. Every gesture, every expression had to scream illness, vulnerability, and weakness. He paused, frowned, muttered something under his breath, and finally left. For now, I was safe. But I knew this wouldn't be the last challenge. My father was cunning, persistent, dangerous in a way I hadn't fully realized until that night. The next day, I went through my routines with even greater precision. I rehearsed my sick persona for calls, interactions, and even casual glances through the window. Every step outside my apartment was calculated. Every transaction, every small movement, meticulously planned. Grandma helped me create decoys, small fake transactions, deliberate purchases to mislead anyone who might be watching. But tension lingered. Dylan was still curious. Vanessa was still sharp. And now my father had shown up unannounced. The stakes were higher than ever. Every knock at the door, every phone call, every unexpected visitor was a potential disaster. And then Vanessa called again. Her voice was calm, but I could sense the edge of suspicion beneath it. Jeffrey, you've been avoiding everyone, canceling plans, acting strange. I just want to understand what's going on. Are you hiding something? I forced a weak cough. I'm still sick, really. Maybe next week, I lied, keeping my tone trembling, my expressions weak. She didn't push, but the feeling of scrutiny didn't leave me. Vanessa was the type to notice patterns, to remember every small inconsistency, and I knew she could uncover my secret if she started probing too hard. Over the next week, Grandma and I devised multiple contingency plans. We created scenarios for almost everything. Unexpected visits from Dylan, probing questions from Vanessa, sudden phone calls from friends, even unplanned encounters with neighbors. Every potential risk had a countermeasure, every loose end tied in my mind. Despite all precautions, fear and paranoia consumed me. Every shadow in my apartment seemed like a threat. Every noise, a creak, a hum, a distant siren felt like a countdown to disaster. I even started checking the locks repeatedly, watching my blinds like a hawk, and double-checking every hidden stash of money. Then one afternoon, as I was organizing my documents and double-checking my hidden accounts, I heard it, the unmistakable sound of footsteps outside my apartment door. Slow, measured, deliberate. My blood ran cold. I ducked behind the couch, holding my breath. It wasn't Dylan. It wasn't Vanessa. It wasn't Grandma. Whoever it was had patience, knowledge, and intent. My phone vibrated quietly on the floor. A message from Vanessa. Jeffrey, I just need to talk. Please, I'm worried about you. I froze. She didn't know where I was, but she had a way of sensing things, always noticing details others missed. I realized then that my secret wasn't just at risk from intruders. It was at risk from the people I had loved and trusted, or thought I could trust. The footsteps grew louder. My heart hammered against my ribs. The intruder's hand was on the doorknob, and in that instant, I knew one terrifying truth. Hiding $92 million wasn't just a game anymore. It was a battle. A fight for control, safety, and my freedom. And the next move, my move, would determine whether I survived intact or lost everything. I held the blanket tighter, my mind racing for solutions. Escape routes, lies, excuses. Every second counted. Every heartbeat was a countdown. Because at that moment, my life, the secret I had guarded so fiercely, the fortune I had dreamed of, the freedom I had clawed for, was about to face its most dangerous test yet. The doorknob rattled. Slowly, deliberately. Whoever was on the other side wasn't messing around. My body was frozen, every nerve screaming at me to act. To run, to hide, but there was no time. I clutched the blanket to my chest, trying to look fragile, weak, sick, invisible. Every heartbeat sounded deafening in the silence. Grandma's voice echoed in my mind. Think 10 steps ahead. Protect yourself first. I knew exactly what I had to do, or at least I hoped I did. I slipped silently to the small table near the door, pulling a stack of papers and old receipts I had deliberately left out. Carefully, I tossed them across the room, as if I'd been working on mundane tasks all day. My movements were slow, calculated, convincing. The door creaked open. I held my breath. It wasn't my father this time. It wasn't Dylan. It wasn't Vanessa. It was a delivery man, one I hadn't ordered anything from. He held a clipboard, looking puzzled. Package for Jeffrey Lawson? Relief and panic collided in my chest. I had to act fast. One wrong word, one hesitation, and the wrong person could connect the dots. I smiled weakly, voice trembling. Yes, but I'm not feeling well. Can you leave it outside? He frowned but nodded, setting the package at the door. I closed it slowly, my hands shaking. Another close call, but it reminded me that I couldn't let my guard down. Not for a single second. Every person, every interaction was a potential threat. That night, Grandma and I stayed up late, planning again. We discussed every contingency. What if Dylan found out? What if Vanessa suspected? What if my father returned? We even mapped out ways to make our apartment seem normal, while secretly managing millions of dollars. Grandma suggested misdirection. Leave small amounts of cash visible in mundane spots, invest quietly in offshore accounts, and create believable routines that would never raise suspicion. I realized something terrifying. Hiding this fortune wasn't just about deception. It was about controlling every detail of my life, constantly, every day, forever. It wasn't freedom. It was a responsibility I hadn't fully imagined. Over the next few days, the tension didn't let up. Dylan called repeatedly. Vanessa sent texts, and my father's sudden appearance haunted me. I became obsessed with routines, rehearsing sick behaviors, double-checking locks, verifying transactions, and keeping a mental log of everyone who might get suspicious. I even started checking reflections in windows and mirrors to make sure my appearance matched the sick persona I had created. Then came the unexpected. Vanessa showed up at the apartment building. My stomach dropped. She had a way of noticing things, even the smallest changes in behavior or routine. I watched from the window, pretending to be asleep, my heart hammering. She knocked at the door repeatedly, calling my name. Grandma peeked through the kitchen doorway. "Jeffrey, you need to handle this carefully. You can't let her see anything unusual. Not now, not ever." I swallowed hard and rehearsed my lines. My voice had to tremble with illness. My body had to slump convincingly. My eyes had to look tired and glazed. Every detail mattered. I opened the door just enough to show a frail, sickly figure. "Vanessa, I'm not feeling well," I said, my voice cracking, trembling perfectly. She frowned but seemed to buy it. "Okay. I'm worried about you, but if you say so." She left, and I closed the door, knees trembling. My secret was still safe for now. But the real challenge wasn't outside, it was inside. My mind, the constant fear, the paranoia, the need to control every detail. It was exhausting. I realized that keeping this secret wasn't just about money. It was about protecting my life, my independence, and my sanity. Every decision had to be perfect. Every interaction carefully managed, or the entire plan could crumble. That night, as I lay in bed, Grandma sat beside me, holding my hand. "Jeffrey," she said softly, "you've done everything right so far. But remember, the biggest danger isn't outside. It's inside. Greed, curiosity, even a single mistake can unravel everything. Trust your instincts, stay calm, and always think 2 steps ahead. You've come this far. Don't let anyone, especially yourself, mess it up now." Her words sank deep. I felt the weight of the fortune, the responsibility, and the constant danger pressing down on me. Every sound in the apartment felt amplified, every shadow a potential threat. Then a soft buzz from my phone. A new message. "Vanessa, I know something's going on, Jeffrey. We need to talk, please." My stomach dropped. The secret I had guarded so fiercely was under threat again. But this time I wasn't going to panic. I wasn't going to be reckless. Grandma's guidance, my preparation, and my careful planning had brought me this far. I could handle this. I had to. Because tomorrow everything would change. One choice, one decision, one action, and the $92 million secret, the freedom I had fought for, could either survive or be destroyed. And as I stared at the screen, frozen, I knew one thing for certain: the grand finale was coming. The test I had been preparing for, the real challenge, was about to arrive. And there was no turning back. The tension had reached its peak. Every sound in my apartment felt amplified: the hum of the fridge, the creak of the floorboards, even the faint rustle of leaves outside the window. Vanessa's messages were relentless. Dylan's curiosity remained a ticking time bomb, and my father's sudden visit had reminded me that my secret was always vulnerable. But tonight everything had to be perfect. One mistake, one slip, and 92 million my freedom, and all the careful planning would vanish. Grandma Mabel sat beside me at the kitchen table, her hands folded calmly, her eyes steady. "Jeffrey," she said, her voice soft but commanding, "tonight is the night you take control. Remember, no one can take what's yours if you stay smart, cautious and confident. Trust yourself." I nodded, feeling a surge of determination. Grandma had been my anchor throughout this entire journey. Without her, I wouldn't have survived the intrusions, the suspicious calls, or the paranoia that had consumed me. Now it was time to act. I started with Vanessa. I knew she was clever, too clever, but I had a plan. I invited her over, claiming I finally felt well enough to talk. When she arrived, I greeted her with the same rehearsed fragility that had saved me countless times before. But beneath that, I was fully alert, ready to steer the conversation. She looked at me, eyes sharp, suspicious, but also worried. "Jeffrey, you've been avoiding everyone. I just don't understand." "Why? Why all the secrecy?" I took a deep breath, letting the weak, sickly voice carry the illusion. "Vanessa." I wasn't ready. I needed time. Time to think, to understand my life, my future. She frowned, but I could see curiosity and empathy in her expression. This was my chance. I guided the conversation, carefully controlling every word, every gesture. I revealed just enough truth to satisfy her curiosity, but none of the secret of the fortune. I let her believe I had been struggling with health and personal decisions, keeping her perception focused elsewhere. By the time she left, she seemed reassured, still concerned, but none the wiser. My secret was intact. Next came Dylan. He had a way of noticing inconsistencies, but he was impulsive, predictable. I set up a scenario where he thought he had discovered something minor, an envelope with important documents, for a fake investment project. He was thrilled, thinking he had uncovered a hidden opportunity. I let him take the bait, feeling a thrill as he became completely absorbed in the decoy while the real fortune remained hidden and secure. Finally, there was my father, the man who had once dominated every aspect of my life, the man who had shown up at my apartment, determined to uncover my secret. I knew I couldn't confront him directly, not yet, but I could manipulate the situation to my advantage. I carefully documented every interaction, every suspicious behavior, and quietly ensured that my father's curiosity led him to believe I was still struggling with health and life decisions, not a sudden fortune. Grandma and I worked late into the night, finalizing every detail. Offshore accounts fully funded, investments secure, properties purchased quietly, and a meticulous paper trail that ensured my financial independence without raising suspicion. Every potential threat had been anticipated, every contingency accounted for. By dawn, I felt a sense of calm I hadn't experienced in months. The apartment was quiet, the city outside slowly waking up. I sat with Grandma, sipping our morning tea, both of us smiling faintly, knowing the storm had passed. For now. "You did it, Jeffrey," Grandma said softly. "You've protected yourself, your fortune, and your freedom. Now you can finally live life on your terms." I smiled, feeling a mixture of relief, pride, and exhilaration. For the first time in my life, I was in control. The invisible middle child, overlooked and underestimated, had outsmarted everyone, secured a fortune, and claimed a life of freedom and opportunity. Days later, I finally allowed myself small pleasures: a quiet morning walk, a coffee from my favorite cafe, a visit to a park I had avoided for fear of being noticed. The weight of secrecy was still there, but it was lighter now, manageable. I had learned to navigate a world filled with prying eyes, suspicion, and danger, and I had won. And as I looked out over the city, Grandma by my side, I realized something more powerful than the $92 million. The victory wasn't just financial. It was personal. I had outsmarted my family's expectations, survived their intrusions, and claimed the freedom that had always been denied to me. The secret of my fortune remained mine, hidden in plain sight, guarded with intelligence, patience, and caution. And the best part? I finally understood that true freedom isn't about hiding money, it's about controlling your life, making your own choices, and never letting anyone else dictate your destiny. I smiled, sipping my tea. The world felt new. Endless possibilities stretched ahead. And for the first time, I could finally say I had won.